to for Kansas. Good afternoon, Kansas City, and welcome to Up Close and Cultural with Dr. Klose. And first of all, Happy New Year. It is so good to be back in front of you guys. I hope everyone is having a spectacular new year thus far. It is the first Sunday of 2024, and I am just overexcited and overjoyed that you have chosen to carve a little piece of your day out and spend it here with me. I have a very special guest today and a lot of exciting things planned for the new year. A lot of things that we ended the year with on the last time that we were together in December. And I also want to take a moment and thank you guys for a wonderful year. Last year, I'm always so humbled and so thankful for all of the emails and all of the feedback that I get from everyone. And just, I'm always honored when you give me the opportunity to even just answer your questions and to come into your space, because you could at any time and at any moment choose to be at any place and talk to anyone and a million other professionals in this space, and definitely in the Kansas City area and abroad. This YouTube space and everywhere that we are is so vast, and you choose to come and spend it with me, or choose to take time out of your day and either call the line or send an email to me. And I truly appreciate it, and I am grateful for that. So thank you again for a wonderful 2023. And I definitely see the show growing, the station growing, and us having an even better 2024. So with that, let me stop and make sure that you guys take a moment and tune in with us on all of the social media platforms, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, IG, the TuneIn app, or the Bird app. Make sure that you look for us on KUAW Radio. You can also find us on KUAW.org. That's KUAW.org, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom. And also, if you want to call in today, then the phone number is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And also, you can, as always, just as I just spoke about, send an email and to either me or the station. And as you know, we will definitely respond as soon as we can. And with that being said, we are all impacted by the culture, be it radio, TV, entertainment, and the news. It is definitely a part of our lives. And this is where we talk about it every first and third Sunday with Up Close and Cultural with Dr. Klose. As I said to you before, I have a special guest here with me today. And this special guest also happens to be a very close and personal friend of mine. She is also my Sarah that I love very much. And if you guys follow me online, she's the one that I also call my twin Sarah Dot, but she is out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. And I will let her introduce herself, but I would like to introduce you to Dr. Stephanie Jackson. Go ahead, Sarah. Yes.
Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Klose, my twin, Sarah Doc. Yay, love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Dr. Stephanie Jackson. I go by Dr. Stephanie or Dr. Jax. I am a creative chiropractor, a master educator, and a health and wellness advocate. So I consider this to be an honor to be on this platform with my good friend and my Sarah. And so that's enough of my introduction. I will let you carry on to the discussion.
Well, we have a lot to talk about today, and just a little bit about the plan for the year, like we talked about in December and leading up to this. We are definitely moving into that space where we are centering the Black woman. We are centering ourselves and putting ourselves in position to not only empower ourselves, but to make sure that we have the resources available to be able to move and navigate through this world and through our own communities amongst ourselves, dependent upon ourselves, so that we can evoke change, the necessary change that we strive so hard to see. And that honestly, a lot of times that we often find ourselves begging for, unfortunately. Again, always in my introduction, I talk about the culture, which is, a part of my show topic. And it's just so important because we are impacted by the culture, and the culture being the news and the movies and everything. And my mind is just going back to just recently how, Taraji P. Henson was in the news and crying about the disparities in pay. And it is just, and everyone keeps going back to everything that happened with Monique. And I'm going to get back on topic in a second, but this is certainly relevant. And everyone keeps going back to what happened with Monique. But even more recent, they just left an actors strike. So if you had all of these actors and everyone on this big hiatus for all of these months, why in the world was it that the contracts for Black women, why was that not addressed? Why is it that, and how is it that you can call something successful and Black women are out there campaigning, and Black women were out there at the helm and in front and championing this campaign the entire time, but still only weeks out of it, you're still crying because you still feel like you're not treated fairly. So again, that is something else that we will address later on down the pipeline. That's something for you to think about. But here we are today, again, tackling a topic that was in the news, and still is in the news, that we are going to do a deeper dive into. And for those of you who actually follow reality TV, and we're not going to actually talk about the specific person. And the person I'm talking about is Dr. Jackie Walters from the show Married to Medicine. And definitely those of you who are in Kansas City, you know that Dr. Contessa, she is a native of Kansas City. She's also one of the cast members of Married to Medicine. But Dr. Jackie Walters recently has been a part of a controversy. She made some statements when she was on a Zoom call with Dr. Heavenly. And she made a statement, and that link is actually in the comments. And I will put it in it's in the comments of the promo that I share, but I would throw it in the comments of this actual video. But she made some statements regarding Black women and how she has found that Black women sometimes are dramatic, and that it has been her experience that we will make up excuses when we are pregnant to get off of work, and that we sometimes are not believable, right? So, and of course I'm paraphrasing. That's why you should watch the link. So, of course, this lends itself into the fallacy that Black women just are not believable in so many things and in so many ways and about so many different topics. But specifically about this one and how it's harmful, Dr. Jackie Walters is an OBGYN. She has since then come, I hear an echo. Is that me? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. She has since then made an apology, what she calls an apology. I personally didn't think it was one, or it just didn't suffice for me. But she made an apology. There may have been a second one because she got so much backlash from the first one. But either way, I don't know if I linked that one or not, but I will put it on there. And we're going to talk about the harm behind that, because in those statements and in making those statements and what that does and what it has done historically, it has created this environment where Black women, when we are in crisis and we do have to go to the hospital for whatever reason, we are not believed. And we have to suffer because of it. And specifically when it comes to giving birth, or even just being pregnant, the maternal death rates are increased, have increased, so much to the point where now it's considered an epidemic. And well, no, scratch that. I don't think that it's actually gotten up to that number, but it is very concerning. It is so concerning that there are many states, including Kansas, and including Missouri, right here in our area, where we are definitely at the Capitol every year trying to get funding and legislation passed so these things can be studied, so we can find out why Black women and women of color and Indigenous women are not only coming up missing, but why we are dying at such astronomical rates. And then also to address why the definite reasons that we know why our pain is being ignored. And I'll just stop for a second and pause. Dr. Stephanie, do you have any, thoughts on this topic? Because you actually are in Atlanta. And I know that a lot of Dr. Jackie's own prior, because they since left her practice, her own patients came out and they validated her statements, and they said, hey, this is what she believes, which is why we are former patients and not current patients.
Wow. Well, first of all, I would just like to say I don't know Dr. Jackie personally, and yes, I am in Atlanta. I can't say that I spent too much time watching the Married to Medicine show, and those are for my own personal reasons. I just didn't necessarily like the way African American women are portrayed on television. And so my concern for the Married to Medicine show was that it may present us in a negative light, one in which I, just didn't want to have embedded in me. With that being said, I'm so disappointed in that statement, especially from someone of that stature, or from anyone to that matter, for that matter, who does not think that African American women matter. So much of my own personal studies and my own personal research has been on African American women and their families and the healthcare disparities that we encounter. Right. And so to hear an African American woman who was first an African American woman before she was ever a doctor,
absolutely,
come out with these statements, it just is troubling for me and it's disheartening for me. And so, yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't co-sign with that on any level.
Right. Absolutely. I'm glad you made that statement. She was definitely an African-American woman, a Black woman before she was a doctor. So
Okay.
absolutely. And I shudder to think that she would want or would have wanted someone to make that statement or believe that statement about her mother when her
Oh,
mother was in labor with her. Um, so um, that with that being said, I have been waiting for an OBGYN or a gynecologist to speak on this topic. And there have been so many people talking about it because it is so impactful, the history behind this, because of where it actually came from, where this notion that Black women have this high tolerance for pain, or that we just don't feel it at all. And the fact of the matter is that that fallacy was actually started by an OBGYN.
mhm.
And I understand why perhaps Dr. Jackie didn't want to bring this out because, of course, it would not have helped her platform. And I want to say that I did this is not a Dr. Jackie bashing conversation. That's not at all what this is. Dr. Jackie is a very well respected and accomplished doctor. What I am doing is simply just providing more knowledge and more education on the topic so we can again put ourselves in position to move past it. And the only way you can move past it is to understand the root cause of it, because this didn't start with her. So I don't want people to think that this is a Dr. Jackie problem, because it's not. It is not at all. And it's not until you understand where it came from that you can eliminate it. So there was a doctor by the name of J. Marion Sims. And again, if you look at the link that I posted in the promo, and J. Marion Sims was known as the father of gynecology. And in my personal opinion, and honestly, when you look this man up, you will see him characterized as a monster. And I'm going to try to just, put this in a nutshell because this show is only so long. Basically, Dr. Marion Sims, he's from South Carolina, and he went to school in South Carolina and did his medical training. Because what happens is you do your 4 years of medical school, and then you do you're trained in your specialty afterwards. Okay, you have 4 years of your training afterwards. Well, he decided that he wanted to be an OBGYN. It wasn't called that at that time. Well, we are back in the 1800s, and at that time, treating women was taboo, because looking at a woman's private parts, they really didn't look at them. They would, look away and kind of feel around down there. And this was with white women. I'm talking about white women right now, because when it came to Black women, we were on the plantation and we had to deal with our own knowledge. We were left to our own devices, and we were left with the knowledge that we brought from Africa or from the native of us who were native already to America. So there were the plants and the medicine and the herbs and the foods, and that's what we used as medicine. That's what they used as medicine then. But when it came to the white woman, white women, that is how they were cared for. Okay. And they were fully clothed, and still just a little bit of that. That's what it was like. So there was not a lot of training. It was nothing like it is now, when you can go into the doctor, get a pap smear and breast exams and mammograms and things of that nature. It was nothing like that at all. So here comes J. Marion Sims. What he decided to do is he actually went to Montgomery, Alabama, and decided to open up a hospital and experiment on slaves. And what he did was because the slaves were considered as property, he paid the slave owners to that's how he got his consent. He garnered consent by paying the slave owners to to I just don't even know the right word to characterize the things that this man did. And I'm just trying to find the right words because, as you guys know, YouTube will give you strikes if you say certain words. And, if you put certain things out there, that's why I say things like C19 and like that. So I'm trying to be very careful with my speech. But what happened with J. Marion Sims, there were 3 slaves in particular. And one slave was Anarcha, another one was Betsy, and one was Lucy. And they were from the areas of Tuskegee, Auburn, and the Mount Meigs area. The Auburn, Opelika, and Tuskegee, and then the Mount Meigs area. If you're familiar with that area, then you know what I'm talking about. Montgomery is only just about 45 minutes away from Tuskegee, about an hour or so from Auburn. And what he did. So during that time, as I said before, Black women, we were left to our own devices when it came to giving birth. And then after we gave birth, we were sent right back out, either back to the plantation to work or back into the house, the big house as they call it, to work. So there was not a lot of healing. And then, of course, you worked all the way up until it was time to have the baby. And that was a lot of stress on the body. And when you don't heal properly, all sorts of things happen on the inside. So just putting it plainly, certain parts started to not heal properly. And so Black women started to develop this condition called, and we'll just call it VFS because it's this big word I'm not even getting ready to have people try to pronounce. And so again, it was very painful, and then it isolated a lot of Black women because what it did was it had your bladder to push up against your cervix, and it created this pocket that didn't heal. And sometimes it would bust, and then it would leave an opening that would not heal. And as a result, it would leak urine. And if you could just imagine that if you had that, then they didn't smell all that great. And so again, that's why a lot of women were in isolation, right? So of course, this is something that Black women had to endure. So you have people who are looking at Black women enduring all of these things. And because we are forced to endure these things, you either endure the pain of that or endure the pain of getting beat. So it's which evil do you choose? It's not, because you didn't get sick days back then, right? So it's not as though, so I would just say, so they looked at it as though, oh, that must not hurt that bad because they're back at work, right? They knew better, but still. Okay, so with that being said, this doctor knew that, J. Marion Sims knew that. And then there were some white women who developed this condition. So what J. Marion Sims did, and there were many other slaves that he experimented on. Between these 3 slaves, he performed one, I think Anarcha, there was 17 surgeries. Betsy, there were 16, and Lucy, there were 19 procedures on them. Every last one of them were without sterilized equipment and without pain medication and without anesthesia, which means that all of these procedures were with them wide awake, alert and seeing it. And what happened is he would strip them down, and he would have either his nurses to hold them down, or there would be other physicians, and there would be other physicians who would come in and watch the procedure. And it's not like there were tables like there are in the doctor's offices now. He would have them on the floor, and he would have them on all fours. and have them to bend over. And that's how he had them restrained. And what he did was he would have like it was a big spoon. So if you could imagine a big wooden spoon that you would see, but this one was a metal one, and that he would fashion it so it would bend. And this is it would bend to where it would sort of look like the tools that your gynecologist uses now. And that is what he would use and stick in these women, and then use his knife and do what he did, and did all of these surgeries. And he did it to the point where, of course, they would get what they call back then blood diseases. I know on Anarcha, he did one procedure on her, and the blood disease she got, it took her 4 months to recuperate from, and he brought her right back and started right back up at it. But anyway, these are the things that Black women endured. Now, mind you, there were a lot of untruths that were told. These experiments with these 3 slaves happened between 1845 and 1849. People were saying that there was not anesthesia at that time, and that just simply is not true. There was anesthesia. And I think he chose not to use it. He purposely chose not to use it. And then once he perfected these surgeries, or as he called it, he shut down the hospital, sent the slaves on about their business, and then he went back to New York. Or went to New York, opened up this hospital. He made a book, and it's called The Story of My Life. This book is still in print. And then he is in every single medical book. He started publishing his journals. There's been a lot of controversy about it. Other physicians started coming out going, hey, this didn't happen like that, because he would draw pretty pictures in there of the Black women on the tables, looking as though they were enjoying what he did, and that it wasn't as heinous as it was, as it actually happened. Of course, using the media, which is something that we still deal with now, using the media to portray us in the way that not true. That simply was not true, right? So anyway, with that being said, when you are in medical school, and even to this day, you have to look at books with this man's picture in it. And as a Black woman, if you can imagine, you're in school and you're in there paying thousands of dollars, and especially being someone from Tuskegee whose family and ancestors have been subjected to this. Not only this, but also from the syphilis study and from the Tuskegee experiment. And you have to sit there, you have to stomach this man who did this to your people. And they're hailing him as a hero. And you know that it's not true. And again, he's being hailed as a hero. There's statues of him outside of medical buildings and medical schools, and he's deemed as the father of psychology. So anyway, I said all of that to say this. Dr. Jackie is a gynecologist. This man and the crimes he committed, because they were crimes, he started this entire thing. He perpetuated the myth that Black women feel no pain, and that we are not worthy of our pain being addressed, and that we can be used in any type of way and then discarded when we're done, when they are done. Okay, so it goes much deeper than just her saying what she said. Okay, there is a history behind it that she is well aware of, because this is what you're taught in school from the guy that is deemed as the father of gynecology. Thankfully so, because of the truth coming out about J. Marion Sims, statues of him outside medical schools have started to be torn down. I know the one that was at NYU, the medical school that in New York City, that came down in 2018. I think the one in South Carolina came down too. And in books, he's still called the father of psychology, of gynecology, but they have taken Anarcha and Lucy and Betsy, and they actually call them the mothers of gynecology. And they talk about how they contributed and tell the truth about their contribution to the field of gynecology rather than focusing on the lies that are told about him. So with that being said, I will let you guys read up about that. I just wanted to give context. But because of things like that, we now have informed consent laws. This is why when you go to the doctor and before a doctor can do anything to you, before a doctor can even talk to you, you have to sign the form called a consent form or a consent waiver, giving that doctor permission. And I'm pretty sure, Dr. Stephanie, that you give all of those to your patients, giving, asking them, hey, is it okay if I do X, Y, Z to you? So do you want to talk to people about exactly what informed consent is?
Well, personally, I ask permission for everything. Is it okay for me to, in general conversation, when I'm taking a picture, socially, is it okay for me to, especially if it includes someone else, is it okay for me to post this picture? Because I want to make sure that it is okay, that I have their permission, that in the event that something were to take place, they would already know. And so from with anyone that I deal with, whether it's a patient or whether it's a client, anyone, I'm always asking permission. Informed consent is extremely important and is necessary. And as a matter of fact, to your point, this is something that's big in the news, right? Out in Utah, I was reading just a little bit out in Utah, and I hope that that's I think it was Utah, where they're asking the patients to sign 2 consents, right? One for the procedure, and then another if in fact they needed to have, say, a student come and work with them or work on them. So for me, informed consent is extremely, extremely essential, right? And I think that going back to the conversation about James Marion Sims, Dr. J. Marion Sims, with slaves, it wasn't as if you could say, I want this, right? So informed consent is, in our minds, we're thinking that it is just you saying yes to something. But what if you don't have the ability to say no? Like as a slave couldn't say yes, or they could say no. And so that's the whole piece right there. It is extremely important to have informed consent, to get the patients to agree or to disagree without any type of punitive responses, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is another thing when it comes to informed consent and how they sneak things in on you, and how just women in general. And I can only sit here and speak to you from a Black woman's perspective, but when it just comes to women in general, and you all know, the followers of my show, you know that this is something that I have spoke about before, and that is with these the informed consent forms. When it comes to your surgeries, you need to read and ask questions, read it again and ask some more. And especially when it comes to you being anesthetized or unconscious for any amount of time. I don't care if it's about you getting your tooth pulled. You need to find out what those documents are beforehand, before you get to the hospital. Don't go to the hospital and sign all of these forms like 2 minutes before you're going to the procedure room, and they're pushing all of these chemicals in you for you to go to sleep, which are necessary, okay? Because nobody wants to be awake during surgery. It's not about that. What I'm saying is you need to know what you're signing for the new people, because the old people already know that when it comes to your medical training, and again with the history, and you'll have to go back to the video and I will link it in the comments, that med students, OBGYN med students, and the men as well, that is how they get their training. When you are anesthetized and when you are unconscious, in that informed consent form that you've signed, you are also giving them permission. Women, you're giving them permission to come in and perform a pap smear on you or any kind of pelvic exam on you. Men, you are giving them permission to come in and do a prostate exam on you while you are unconscious and not tell you after it's over. So basically what happens is while you're under, you have med students come in, do whatever procedure. You have no idea what it is. You have no idea who it is. You have no idea what's done. You have no idea what the result of it is. You have no idea what the purpose of it was. And then you have no idea what it was for or who it's going to. And these people have this information, and that's that. That's it. And you find out nothing about it. And there have been some states that have laws against this, but there are many states who don't. And again, those of you who follow me, you know that this is something that we have been advocating for here in the Midwest, to try to get all states on board, because to me, that is sexual assault. Okay. No one should have permission to be all up in my womb and in my vagina without my permission. And my permission also means that don't sneak anything into a form that you know that I do not know is in there. If you're telling me that this form is for me to have surgery, then that form needs to be about me having surgery, period. It does not need to be about you coming in and look at my toes, or for someone to come in there and scratch my back. And, you know, I'm being facetious, but that's exactly what I mean. I'm trusting you as the physician, as the professional, as the hospital, as the people in charge of my care, that you are giving me this because this is for my health and for my safety. You digging all in my vagina has nothing to do with my tonsils, okay? And then the fact that even if if you find something going on down there, you don't even tell me. There is no law saying that you have to. And the fact that these things happen to women, Black, white, or brown, is very, very disturbing. And so another part of this, and another part of this plight, and the things that we're doing this year of the Black woman, these things have to stop. And the only way these things stop is through legislation. Now, Governor Parson has a bill already in Missouri. He needs to sign it. Okay. You know, you have the Attorney General around here filing motions and doing all sorts of things, trying to get crooked cops out of prison, you know, for shooting innocent Black men. He can surely find the time to take care of this. Okay. Definitely, you know, we have Black Legislative Day in February in Kansas. Governor Kelly is awesome. It's those other people out there that we have to worry about. You know, the Democratic Party is awesome. Progressive Party is awesome out here in Kansas. And of course, there are, you know, some people in the other parties that are awesome. And a lot of those people are not. And that is the pushback that we receive, but we're not going to stop, because these things affect all of us. This should not be a political question. This should not be a bipartisan issue. And with everything that we have to fight for, everything that we have to deal with, we should not have to worry about going to the doctor and being sexually assaulted. And I'm sorry that, well, I'm not sorry at all, but that is what it is to me. That is what it is. So, like Dr. Stephanie said, Utah has you to sign 2 forms. Certain states are doing that now. So again, I would say be very, very vigilant. So when you sign these forms, make sure you are signing them after you have had ample amount of time to read them thoroughly and go over them, pull out whatever questions you have, and have time to go over it with your physician and with the anesthesiologist, which is the person who is in charge of anesthetizing you and giving you those medications that put you under. Okay. And then make sure whether you write it on that form or you have another form that you could, because now you can go to any resource online and come up with your own contract and put it on there that I only give you permission to do procedures relevant to this procedure. Or me, especially going through my cervical cancer, and this is also cervical cancer month. If you all saw that, I put that or cervical cancer awareness month. And I thought about that because there are a lot of women who are out there getting their pelvic exams, and your daughters should be getting them too, and definitely getting the HPV vaccine as well to safeguard against genital warts and other things that could possibly happen. But definitely prevention is the key, which is the next thing that we're going to talk about. But be vigilant in everything. And me, sometimes you have to be frank. And I will write on the form, I don't want nobody in my vagina for nothing. Oh. You know, I'm not getting ready to go and try to figure out anything about nothing, because I'm going to make it plain, like the preacher say. I'm going to make it plain about everything. I don't have time sometimes, or when it comes to my children, especially my oldest one. I mean, she's never had to have surgery for anything outside of her tooth. But and I tell her that don't try to be fancy about anything. I mean, I know I mentioned the form because I want to give people all of the information, but you don't have to be fancy about a lot of things. Put on the form, I am here because my shoulder is dislocated, or have a broken leg and you have to reset it. There's no reason for you to be in my vagina. Stay out of my vagina, stay out of my back door. Just put that on there. I do not give consent to enter my vagina for no reason whatsoever. In the event that there is an emergency, then contact my husband, my girlfriend, my dog, my cousin, whatever. Make sure that you put that in there. Make sure that you keep yourself safe by saying that, because people will come back and say, oh, well, we had to do that. And you don't know what they're talking about because they are a physician, and they'll start throwing these words at you, or you feel like you have to believe them. Well, nope, you go. If something becomes necessary, then I need for you to consult with my next of kin or whomever, or even my primary care physician. Okay, because there's always a difference between your primary care physician and your surgeon for whatever reason. Okay, so again, make sure that you safeguard yourself against these harms, because you don't have to take it. So until we can get this legislation passed, and until we can get these things moving in a different direction, which is a way that we, like I said, as women, can empower each other by having these conversations and giving ourselves options. This is how you do it. And then perhaps maybe we could come up with something and make this just a part of your standing file at hospitals, so you don't have to do this all the time, because emergencies do happen. Say I was involved in a major car accident, and of course, and I was already out, by the time I got to the hospital. So there was no signing a form or coming up with a form to tell them to stay out of my vagina. I don't know what happened. So you have, in circumstances like that, I would have wanted something in my file already that said stay away. Okay, so maybe there is something that you can have in your file, but like hospitals keep your will as a part of your file. Maybe that's something that can be attached to that. I don't know, but that's a conversation that we can come together and we can have, because y'all, we can figure this out. We can figure this out. The things that happen to us, we can take control of and address what we can, but we have to start having the conversations about it. And again, having conversations in a productive way to where we're moving towards solutions and not about bashing. Because like I said, this is not about a Dr. Jackie bashing session. This was about addressing the ill so we can understand where it came from. Because if you were listening to what I said, this is what's being taught. So this is something that is ingrained in all of these hospitals all across the world, okay? And I say across the world because you have people in other countries who come over to the United States for their training as well, right? So we have to, so you can't think of it as a Dr. Jackie problem, all right? You can't make her the blame, and you can't make a particular
conversations about this, right? For us to have more conversations about this. And just to add to what you're saying, we should have this in our records. And then we should also have a copy of this as well. And in an ideal world, it would be great if the patients could spend more time with the doctors so that the doctors could break these things down. And in the event that they don't have enough time with the doctors, because sometimes doctors can't spend an hour and a half in a room with each patient. But if there were, say, some advocates, someone who was kind of in the middle, in between, that could break this information down. I know when I was in school, they would tell us, hey, you need to speak to your patients as if they were on a 5th grade level. You can't use, to your point, these humongous words that we know. We have to use those words that they would be able to understand a lot better. So we'd have to be able to communicate. And some patients, that takes us down to another whole rabbit hole of the educational level of the patients. Like, you can't expect them to sign a form and they may not be able to fully understand it as well they should. So there should be some advocate in the middle, someone that can help them to understand it. And then also that they should be able to have a copy of this as well. They should be able to have a copy of this when I sign a form and say, I do not want you in my private parts. I need a copy of this so that I can have for my records, for my protection as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great point. And then also to your point, even outside of the education level, when you're in pain and when you're in crisis, you don't make the best decisions, you don't listen, and you don't understand, or sometimes you just don't want to hear it, right? So it's not the time to try and figure it out. It is not the time to be bombarded with information. So that is certainly something that we can start to try and figure out. And then even with that being said, talking about this being Cervical Cancer Awareness Month and talking about prevention, part of that is having this conversation with your daughters and educating your daughters. I know in the Black community, certain things are still taboo, and Black women don't always sit down with their daughters and have the conversations about our lady parts. We need to start. You need to start, and I mean having adult conversations with them, adult age appropriate conversations with them, using appropriate words. It's not a vajayjay, it's not a pot or those other things. You want to be taken seriously, and you
Right.
want your child to be taken seriously, especially if something happens, so they can articulate to people when something happens. Then it is your responsibility to arm them with the correct information so they can speak to people and not be embarrassed about it. We all have them, okay? We all have vaginas, we all have butts. They need to know what these parts are, because that's what they are. It's not about giggling. It is about being educated and being informed. Okay, because if someone else says this to them and your child is sitting there going, well, what in the world is this? Okay, then that's just not a good look. But also, and to our last point before we get out of here, a part of prevention is making sure that we take care of ourselves on the back end. Make sure that we are doing what we need to do so that we can decrease our chances. Now, we do know that a lot of things are hereditary, certain things such as thyroid and diabetes, and certain things are hereditary, sickle cell, certain things that just as a community we do suffer from, and certain things we can't control. But the things that we can do, let's start doing it. Let's start staying hydrated. Let's start taking control of our diets and walking and doing part of those holistic things that Dr. Stephanie, I'll let you talk about it, especially as a chiropractor. Talk about some of those things that you specialize in, that Black women can start doing. So on the back end, that can decrease even the chances of having to go to the doctor in the first place.
Well, let me just say that I am a chiropractor and I love chiropractic. And so the very first thing that I would encourage everyone who has a spine, which is everyone, human and animals too, because they have animal chiropractic, I would encourage people to go to see a chiropractor. From what, just based on my own personal experience, I know that if you go to the chiropractor on a regular basis, the chiropractors, we see patients more often than their regular professional, their regular doctor, right? Because typically a patient would see a doctor maybe twice a year. If you're doing it like that's recommended, you go see a chiropractor once a month. And so the chiropractor would be able to identify those things, those changes in your body. And then they will be able to then tell you, hey, this is something that you may want to take a look at. This is something that you may want to refer to your primary healthcare physician. But some of the things that I always encourage, aside from getting a chiropractic adjustment on a regular basis, once a month at least, just for maintenance, is I encourage people to eat right. I encourage them to get enough sleep, at least 8 hours of sleep. I encourage people to take vitamins. I encourage people to get outside and in the sun. I encourage people to think positive thoughts as best they can. I encourage them to have fun, to listen to good music, to identify with a support group of people who think like them and help to empower them and help them to feel good about themselves. Those are just the basics, aside from drinking lots of water and eating lots of fruit and, coming on to and listening to podcasts like this that help you feel empowered. Those are some of the basic things that I encourage patients to do.
Awesome. That is great advice. Well, it's almost time for us to get out of here. I thank you so much, Sarwar, for being on here and just sharing great wealth of knowledge. This has been a great conversation. I am definitely excited about where 2024 is going. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge with us. Let my wonderful supporters know where they can find you, how they can contact you across the socials, and definitely in Atlanta.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my website is www.stephaniemjackson.com. There you'll be able to find all the information that I've shared, plus additional information. You can contact me through there. On Facebook, it's Dr. Stephanie M. Jackson. On Instagram, I think it's Dr. Stephanie Jacks. So you'll be able to find me. And if you can't reach me through any of those, reach out to my good sis, Dr. Kara Say. She knows how to reach me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Up Close and Culture with Dr. Carrie Say. And you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you guys on the third Sunday. Take care.